Nissan have sold over 1.2 million of these second generation Qashqais, and it's so popular that they're bringing out a third generation, which has already been announced and on its way very shortly. So I'm here to answer the question whether you should go out and buy a second generation Nissan Qashqai or wait until the third one comes out. My name's Cameron, this is a ProductReview.com.au in-depth look, and today we're checking out the 2021 Nissan Qashqai Midnight Edition. Now before we get started, make sure you subscribe to our channel because we have plenty more reviews on the way and we're only just getting started. So you can check out some of our past reviews in the playlist below or jumping onto our channel, but just make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out, because it'd be sad if you did. This here is the second from the top of the range Nissan Qashqai Midnight Edition, and this one starts at $36,740. Now what the hell is a Qashqai? Well, it's the name of a semi-nomadic tribe that wanders around the north of the globe and is meant to evoke a sense of adventure with Nissan's mid-size compact SUV. Now we've already tested the smallest SUV you can buy from Nissan, which is the Duke, which you can see our review just above my head or in the description down below. And this here sits below the X-Trail. So it's the larger version of the city-going SUVs from Nissan. And so this Qashqai here is what Nissan refers to as its Dark Knight. And so what do you get with the Midnight Edition? Well, let's go through it. You get a gloss black grille, you get darkened LED headlamps and LED turn indicators. You get an adaptive front headlight system which turns with corners. You get body colored front, rear and side panels, as well as these body colored wheel arches and these 19-inch black alloy wheels. You also get gloss black exterior mirrors, which are power folding, and you get these gloss black roof rails as well. And you also have some gloss black side paneling down here as well, running along here. You've got these illuminated kick plates right here. You've got these leather and Alcantara seats and a black headliner. You also get darkened LED taillights at the rear and these black moldings down here on the bottom as well. And a midnight badge. Now the third generation of Nissan Qashqai will have the word Qashqai spelt along the back, and that's because designers said they wanted the rear to look balanced, and that's probably why we have that midnight badge back there, to help the Qashqai badge not stand all alone by itself when flanking the Nissan badge. Now with all that aside, let's jump into the back of the Nissan Qashqai Midnight Edition. It's a manual boot, and then when you open it up, you're greeted with 430 litres of boot space. This parcel shelf I'm not a huge fan of, so to get rid of that, it's really easy to get rid of. Once you get it out, of course. And it's massive, so you can just put that aside, and that's when you're gonna have all your usable 430 litres of boot space. Now, what do you have in here? It's not too much. You have a simple light and you have a full-size spare in here, which is great, along with the various bits of toolkit you'll need to change a spare tyre. Beyond that, you have some side storage, which helps smaller items not float around, like this water bottle I have here. It is stored here on the side with a piece of elastic, which is really cool to see that you can just put that on the side, and now my water bottle won't be flying around the back. Now, if you want to get the full usability of the larger size Nissan Qashqai, well, what you need to do is you need to fold down the seats. The seats fold down in a 60-40 split, which is pretty typical. So, to show you that now, very typical operation. You just press the top down and they fold down. And I find those are a lot easier to fold down than the Duke were. So once you get them all folded down, you do have an obvious parcel shelf, which is about 5 centimeters tall, and it will stop you smoothly sliding items in if they do get caught on that. Well, it's not really an issue because it matches similar with the drop that you have here on the rear. So it's actually a pretty generous boot space you have here. It's 1,598 liters back here, which is pretty impressive, and it's a bit more usable than the Duke. So if you need something to carry around a few more bits and pieces and larger items with a larger opening and a bit more of a square shape, the Qashqai is your answer. Now the inside of the new 2021 Qashqai Midnight Edition is getting a little old. That's because this interior came out in 2017, and with the new Nissan products coming out, it is feeling a tiny bit tired because the new one just looks a whole lot better. So if you need a lot more screens to quench your thirst, you can wait until the third generation because that will have a digital display and a bigger infotainment system in the middle. And so inside here, it's brought up to spec to make it feel a little bit more modern, and it certainly does feel like that. And so at the end of the day, this is a very basic interior, but there are plenty of positives in here as well. So let's talk about them. First of all, it's this telescopic and flat bottom steering wheel, which is really easy to adjust and get comfortable. I like this a lot, and it's really nice to feel and touch when you're driving. This center display has a cool coating on it that makes it feel like it's a bit more fingerprint resistant. I'm not leaving any marks there at all, or minimal amounts, which is nice, and it's really responsive to touch and got nice quick menus on either side, especially for the camera, so you can jump to your camera settings when you're parking, say to look at your wheels or to look front and rear. This driving position as well is really nice. I have plenty of headroom and plenty of space for my knees and all that, and I feel like I'm in a bit of a commanding driving position. I especially like this glass greenhouse that we got going on here because it's got really good visibility and it's easy to look out and feel comfortable while driving. And talking about being comfortable, these seats are awesome. The Alcantara and leather finish do really lift up this interior, and they do feel really nice. And you know, I haven't had a sore back while driving this. It's been really comfortable, and I've done a couple of hundreds of kilometers in this, and it's been all very good with no fuss. And finally, those adaptive cornering lights are really cool at night, especially going through tighter corners. It lights up the way left or right, depending where your wheel's turning, just so you get that extra bit of visibility at night, and I really appreciate that. Now, sitting in the back of the Qashqai is where you're gonna be paying for more space over the Duke, for example. You're gonna have a lot more legroom and feet room, which I certainly do. This is set to my driving position, and it's a manual seat, so it's not going anywhere. I have okay knee room. I mean, if you're any taller or like to stretch out your knees a bit, you're gonna feel a bit of pressure on your knees, but your feet are nice and comfortable and have a fair bit of room to play with down there. Headspace, yep, pretty good. I'm 5'11" and I'm pretty comfortable back here. The leather armrest on the rear here, nice to put your hands. But the thing that becomes very apparent quite quickly into a road trip are some of the negatives of this interior. And first of all, that's no rear air vents that I can adjust back here. I have an empty space in the center console where I would presume you would put some vents, but I have nothing back here. So airflow has to all come from the front. I mean, sure, you'll be just fine, but if you're really needing that extra bit of air, you're not gonna get it, which is sort of a bit of a downside that I thought became quite apparent. Another thing that's apparent, no USBs back here. I can't charge or connect with anything back here, and oh no, I can just fold the center armrest back in the driver's console. Oh wait, it doesn't do that. It only goes up to 90 degrees. So I can't even feed cables back from the center console with ease or reach in there without needing the driver or front passenger's assistance. Now you have okay seat pockets in the front, and your armrest will make things just that little bit more comfortable. And you do have nice cup holders in here, which should make it easy to carry around bits and pieces. And you also have ISOFIX points here in the rear and anchor points at the back, which are really easy accessible. So really, if you're carrying younger kids around here, they're gonna be absolutely fine. But when you do need a charge and do need airflow back here, that's not so great. And talking about USBs, there's only one port for the entire cabin, and that's really just for CarPlay. So you can't take that out without losing CarPlay. So it's a bit annoying because you're gonna have to buy some of those 12-volt USB adapters if you buy a second generation Qashqai. 106 kilowatts and 200 newton meters of torque coming from this naturally aspirated petrol 4-cylinder motor. Now that's 78 kilowatts per ton, around there, which is actually 10 kilowatts more than the turbocharged 3-cylinder motor per ton than the Nissan Duke. So a heavier car has a better power to weight ratio, and this one here is actually paired up to a CVT transmission. So we're gonna find out if having no turbocharger and a CVT transmission is of any concern at all. Now let's get a little launch out of the Nissan Qashqai Midnight Edition, because the CVT transmission, which is constantly variable transmission, is basically one gear. So you're gonna hear a weird thing. You're gonna hear the revs hold at a point. You're never gonna change gears. So 3, 2, 1, here we go. There you go, no gear change, all the way up to the speed limit, and it's a bit of a surreal experience if you haven't driven a CVT before. Now, CVTs aren't for sporty driving, and they're definitely not for driver engagement. What they are for are efficiency and smooth power delivery, which this does very well, because fuel economy wise, this car claims 9.2 liters per 100 kilometers in a city where this is meant to be driven. I managed 9.1. And I'm pretty happy with that. It's rare that I ever see my claimed number be higher than what I actually achieve, because I do drive with a bit of a lead foot. So nice to see that the Nissan can be very economical. Now for drive modes, like I mentioned, this isn't gonna be a sporty drive. This is an efficient, comfortable, and easy car to drive. And so you do have an eco mode, which is a bit hard to reach, it's near your right knee, and I don't think anyone driving this is ever going to use that. Instead, you're just going to get in, press the keyless start, which is really nice because you get the keyless entry as well, and just get going. Now, in terms of comfort, the steering position is really nice and the seating position is also great. I feel like I've got a very nice commanding position in a SUV, which is what people want to buy this for. Combine that with a pretty good suspension setup, which does have a pretty weird fault in my opinion, which is that when you run over a sharper bump like this one, it makes a god-awful noise, and even over speed bumps it does this, and it's really concerning if you're not used to that in your own car, or you just bought it because you think you've just broken something, or you sound like you're about to. It's a bit of a concerning sound, and I don't know how to fix that because it might be a result of the bigger wheels, but it just means that when you're driving an SUV, you feel like you have to drive it like a sports car. It's around potholes because it just makes too much of a weird noise going over speed bumps. Now, in saying that, not an issue when you're underway on smoother or even rough surfaces that don't have big dips or bumps in them. You actually have a nice smooth ride, which is nice and comfortable, paired up with these decent bolstered seats. But if you're a bit shorter, you actually can't bring this driving position any lower, so it might be a tiny bit annoying. Now, in terms of safety and features, this started 5 stars out of ANCAP's safety rating, which is decent back in 2017. And also, it's got plenty of safety tech like autonomous braking, it's got passive lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, which is cool that it lights up on the inside rather than on the outside mirrors, and it's also got cruise control. But the reason why I said cruise control with such contempt is that it doesn't have radar cruise control, which I desperately wish it had. Driving in the Duke was great because you put adaptive cruise control and you forget about it, and Nissan does have the tech, but it's just not applied in this edition of the Qashqai. And in terms of how responsive this gearbox is, in terms of you need to get away or overtake in a awful position, or you want to overtake on a single country road, it's okay in terms of responsiveness. So when we drop down a couple of kilometers and we go, okay, idiot going now, tiny bit of a lag, which isn't an issue. It's sort of expected in this industry, but a turbocharger may have eliminated that, or as we know, typical turbochargers don't often eliminate all the lag. And in terms of steering feel, it's all right. It's numb for sure. Like, you're not going to feel anything through the wheel. And the thing that sort of gets me is that going through corners, you sort of miss out on where your wheels are positioned because just how much the steering wheel does turn. So if we're going through this junction, for example, we go, okay, we're going to turn. I sort of go, all right, sort of think I'm going to go this way, and yeah, it's okay. Look, it's all right. You're going to sort of have a rough idea where your wheels are, but it's just a little bit wish-washy when you want to get a more direct steering feel, and it doesn't adjust much because there's no sport mode to do that. So you're just going to have to deal with this steering, which is, yeah, just fine, but don't let that flat bottom fool you because it's definitely not designed for sporty driving. In terms of how this engine fares on steeper hills like this one, we're going up and you can hear it straining a bit because there's no turbocharger there, so low-end torque isn't really what it's all about. This engine does need to rev out, and it does create a little bit of a racket, like you can hear right now, heading up a steady hill, and thanks to that CVT, it's going to keep droning on because it won't really drop down a gear. But funny thing is that you can change gears in this, so there is a gear changing mode. You just slap the stick over to the left and you've got yourself gears, which is basically, you know, I drop down to second and the engine just revs really high because it's not really going into a gear, and it just sort of plays around with the revs rather than actually selecting a gear because CVTs don't have a gearbox. They're just a constantly variable transmission, which is just, yeah, don't bother with changing gears because it's even in the wrong way. Like, it should be push up is to go down a gear and pull down is to go up a gear, but instead it's the other way around, which is a bit meh. And so I believe if you're cross shopping a newer car, so say if you're in a newer car yourself and looking for a bigger update, I don't think the Qashqai will deliver all the way with all the bells and whistles because it is missing out on a few different pieces. I think the next generation will definitely be a ultra competitive mid-size SUV where this feels like, yes, it's on its way out, and it is. So unless you're getting a killer deal on this, I do think just sit on your hands and wait for the next generation Qashqai. So this is the ideal commuter car. It's easy to drive in traffic, it's going to carry plenty of things and people with relative comfort, and it's just going to get the job done while looking good. But there's a few issues with that. It's not going to fill your sports car desires, nor it's not going to even try. The Duke did try with its flappy paddle gearbox and sports mode. This has none of that. It's not going to be great at going off-road either, because it doesn't even have a off-road mode. And it doesn't have adaptive cruise control, which makes me want to take back a little of that daily driver sentiment, because adaptive cruise would really fix up all the issues with going in bumper to bumper traffic with this. And it's not to say that Nissan doesn't have the tech, they have it in the Nissan Duke. So I think that leaves me with, should you buy one? If you're looking to upgrade to a bigger mid-size compact SUV and it's been a while and you have an older car, I think you'll appreciate everything that the Qashqai has to offer, especially in this midnight trim. It's the looks, some of the convenience features, and the luxury fitments like the Alcantara and leather seats. You'll definitely be happy driving around in this. And that's if you need a car right now. If you also need a car right now but don't necessarily need all the space and want a Nissan, I think you should be going for the Duke, because that feels a lot more modern than this does. I think it looks a little bit neater because it's just got a updated styling, and I think ultimately if you need a car right now and don't need the space, that is the Nissan to get in the small SUV segment. Now, if you need to upgrade your car and you don't need to do it right this instant, but you know it's needing to be done over the next year or year and a half, I think you should wait to hear more news about the third generation Qashqai. There's been plenty of coverage over the launch of it over in the UK, and I believe it's heading here shortly, and I think with the upgraded tech, and it will hopefully fix the bits and pieces that I have to complain about in here, like the lack of USBs and lack of radar cruise control. I think that should come here and do the job. It should also bring a hybrid option as well, which will help bring the fuel consumption down while you're in the city. So the third generation will be your pick if you're happy to wait just that little bit longer. But if you want a good deal, I'm sure there are plenty of dealerships that'll be wanting to give you a good offer on the second generation Qashqais before the third ones arrive. Now, do remember to subscribe and like, because it definitely does help our videos, and it makes sure you don't miss out on any more reviews that we have coming up. We definitely have more reviews popping up over the coming months, so make sure you keep an eye on that. There should be a new video almost every week, which is very exciting. My name's Cameron. This has been a ProductReview.com.au in-depth look at the 2021 Nissan Qashqai Midnight Edition, and I'll see you in the next one.